Bob Lazar claims that he worked on reverse engineering of extraterrestrial spacecrafts at a secret S4 location south of Area 51. For over 40 years, he's been criticized and shunned from the community that he was making up lies, that what he was saying was untrue. What he did, in fact, give us information on is without a doubt the truth. The government wanted him to keep it a secret. But as they call them, him out of 22 men, he was the whistleblower. He knew or felt, although sometimes he does question himself, was he smart in letting the cat out of the bag and giving people, the Americans, the world, this information that we have intelligence beyond our understanding, that the government wants us to figure out how their technology works. Whistleblower. He worked there for 6 months and he was terminated due to, this is what they say, bringing people he knew to the area to show him the spacecraft. This could be true, this could be false. Maybe it's because he was a whistleblower. But nothing should be kept from the public. Why shouldn't we know? Why shouldn't we be given this information that we are not alone? We are not alone. And why are we not alone? All this does is open up more questions than there are answers. Number one, besides the obvious that Bob Lazar's purpose is to figure out the technology that this spacecraft held. And his job specifically was to understand the propulsion of the machine. Because this aircraft worked like no aircraft that we have. It worked through negative gravity. Negative gravity. The propulsion of it is something that we don't use. But what fueled the propulsion is a technology that they will deny that they had back in 1988 to 1989. What is this source of fuel, you ask? The fuel is meconium, element 115. Meconium, element 115, or 115 if you like that better. This element, is a super heavy synthetic radioactive element with extremely unstable. It's extremely unstable and it decays within milliseconds. Okay? And yet, his main assertion is that 115, meconium, is the source of power and propulsion for the alien technology to move, the propulsion. Now, this super heavy synthetic radioactive element, and you can see it now, it's on your elements table, was recently added to the table because conveniently it was discovered in 2003 by the Russians and the Americans converting two, or colliding two things. The first word looks like America, but it's not. It's called Americium, Americium. So Americium and calcium. So colliding those two creates meconium, 115. Now remember, 115 meconium, it's very expensive to make. It decays within milliseconds. Milliseconds. From here to here, it's gone. Here to here, gone. Milliseconds. Here, gone. Gone. It decayed into a lighter element. Where is it? It's gone. But this is the substance that is very expensive to make, very hard to understand, yet somehow they created the element, which again, it was already existing and being used back in the late 80s by the Americans and the Russians. So you come up with your own conclusion, but we are not going to be lied to anymore. And we know that the governments are constantly lying to all of us. This is something we know. Be born knowing this, because they want to keep everything away from the people. Like, we're their children and we need to be protected from knowing things. We're grown adults. We need to be educated. We need to know what's going on. And it opens up our consciousness, and it opens up the idea of existence to a bigger question, right? That we are not the all-knowing, the top of the food chain, the top of the intelligence parameter. We can't be, because we can't figure out this technology. One thing that is interesting is I wish I knew who replaced Bob Lazar. We don't know, because he was there for 6 months and then he was replaced. They got rid of him. They terminated him for being a whistleblower. That's what I think. Now, Bob Lazar, he's not a liar. They wanted to set him up like he was a liar and he was making it up. There's actually a map that that if you really dig deep, you can find a map in 1941 that shows a road that goes directly into where he was evaluating the spacecrafts. But as soon as people got word of this information, the road disappeared. How convenient. Because they're like, nah, we don't need anyone seeing this road. We don't need anyone, Same thing like Area 51, right? If you get too close, you're going to be confronted and told to exit the premises, right? Because, we're not stupid. We know what you're doing. You have spacecrafts and you're trying to understand how they work so that you have the power of their crafts. But questions that are not being asked is, number one, how are they receiving these spacecrafts in pristine condition? Because like Bob Lazar said about this sleek, rounded, very dark, spherical spacecraft, it's almost like it was 3D printed. There are no nuts and bolts and screws. It's made sleek, right? And it's very dark inside, very dark. It doesn't light up with natural light. Like if I had my ring light in there, it would still be dark. The technology is a mystery. The aliens, first of all, where are the aliens? Where are the aliens that were in the spacecraft? Because they got the spacecraft. Where are the aliens? Where did they go? Who are they? Why are they here? First of all, why are they here? Now, Bob Lazar described the energy as a living, this is what he said, like a living force field, right? So they have the meconium. They don't know how to use the meconium. It's very difficult to create and to sustain, right? And I'm not a scientist. I don't understand isotopes and positive and heavy. And, I got to delve more into understanding elements and the decaying factor, maybe you know more than I do, but the physics to understand this technology, the negative gravity effect, the anti-gravitational field, has us all confused. Specifically had Bob Lazar confused. So he was there, he did his best to try to figure out this technology, reverse engineer technology. Like, you learn about it by going backwards, by taking it apart. It's like, you know how if you're into cars and you tinker, you take the engine apart? It's like that, but with a spacecraft. You're tinkering on a spacecraft that's from out of this world. And then another question I have is, where did it come from? Where did it come from? Why did it arrive here on Earth? Has it always been here? Is it interested in the planet itself? Is it interested in humans? Now, I would like to say this. I find this fact very interesting. Have you ever heard of Starfish Prime? Not Amazon Prime, Starfish Prime. Starfish Prime. Have you ever heard of it? What's Starfish Prime, you ask? Well, I don't know if any of this comes together, but I'm trying to correlate how highly advanced these spacecrafts are, along with how human beings were having a rodeo with nukes back in the 50s and the 60s. And Starfish Prime is a 1.4 megaton high altitude nuclear test conducted by the USA July 9th, 1962, detonating a warhead 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful. The human race. Why the hell would anyone come here, especially the aliens? So this was the largest nuclear space test. It had a lot of unexpected severe consequences. Duh. Duh. Bravo. Not bravo. I'm being sarcastic. So unexpected severe electromagnetic pulses. We had EMPs. We had radiation belts. We had damaging satellites. And we also disturbed Hawaii, their electronics. One of the second times America disturbed Hawaii, that's a whole nother video. But Starfish Prime, who knew? Not Amazon Prime, Starfish Prime, which is much worse than Amazon Prime. Just think about that. 1.4 megatons, high altitude nuclear test conducted by the US, July 9th, 1962, detonating a warhead 250 miles above the Pacific Ocean. Okay, where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is that perhaps, how did these perfect spacecrafts just end up on our laps, metaphorically speaking? Where now we put the spacecraft in the desert, south of Area 51, in this bunker thing, and now we have people who the government deems to be the best in their field. Like, they found Bob Lazar to be the best in his field in physics and electronics to figure out how this spacecraft worked. So the reason why I'm mentioning Starfish Prime is because maybe things correlate. Like, where did these spacecrafts come? Again, they were in pristine condition. Were they donated? Was it a donation by the aliens? Were they like, take this one. See if you can figure it out. We're out. We're out of here. Maybe it was a donation. A donation from the aliens. Because it's not like the spacecraft was in pieces. No, it looked perfect. So maybe all the nuclear testing that America did, and it did it Not 100 times, not 200, 1,000 times. The United States, bravo, terrible, evil, decided, again, what are the aliens doing here? Do they see what we're doing to this beautiful planet? And I would leave. If I was an alien and I went to a planet and I saw the most intelligent species throwing up nuclear bombs and testing them out, I'd say, it's time to go. Or maybe you donate your spacecraft to them. Or maybe their spacecraft couldn't handle it and maybe their consciousness is linked to something else and not the spacecraft. Maybe that's it. There's more questions than answers. But nevertheless, you can't deny that there is aliens. That's a fact. We know there's aliens. And Mosconium was the fuel of the alien aircraft. So if you learned anything today about life, death, what is real, what is not, know this. 115 Moscovium was used to fuel the alien spacecraft. 115 was also used by alien spacecraft, gravitational bending propulsion. So gravitational bending propulsion. Gravitational bending propulsion. Everyone should know about this. Because if we're going to bend gravity and propulse ourselves into the universe, we need to figure out how to use Moscovium 115 to do it. I also want to mention something that I think is like really interesting about Bob Lazar. His last name, Lazar, originally is El-Azar. That's where it comes from. It's Hebrew. And the name actually means God has helped, or whom God helps. Isn't that interesting? So El meaning God and Azar meaning help. So El-Azar meaning God helps. So it's either God help, maybe Bob Lazar is a manifestation that we have aliens. But remember, God made the aliens too. He made us, he made the universe, he made the aliens. And maybe he's sending them here to help. God has helped, because that's his last name. God has helped. Whom God helped. That's interesting to me. I look into that. His name, that's kind of cool. Don't you think? Bob Lazar? So anyway, he actually just came out on Joe Rogan. You could watch it. It's pretty good. They start to really get into it midway of the conversation. Joe Rogan is talking to Bob Lazar. Bob Lazar's having a couple of drinks. Sometimes he has to, regain his thoughts because he gets sidetracked. We also have Luigi there. Luigi is the person who worked with Bob Lazar in creating the show that's on Amazon Prime. What is it? Bob Lazar, Area 51, something like that. You'll find it. And they got very close and they were talking about the details of the movie and the details of the events. And I don't know, everybody was just so excited to listen to Bob Lazar. And you know what? I watched it pretty much till the end, until the point where Luigi was discussing him and his sister, how they worked together in creating this documentary. And he mentions about finding, which was very difficult, the map of the road that would lead you to the area where Bob Lazar was evaluating and trying to figure out the advanced technology of these spacecrafts. Also, what's interesting, and I don't fully understand, but I'll try to explain it the best I can from what I don't understand, is the other people who were experts in their own field, they weren't able to communicate or commence with their ideas. Like the metal guy who was worried about one part didn't talk to Bob Lazar, who was focused on like the propulsion. Everyone was focused on like a different part of the spacecraft. They didn't work together. They would have to send each other messages, and it was a slow process. It wasn't efficient. I don't know. It just, but 100%, you know, we have aliens. So what are the aliens doing here? Why do they want, don't they see humanity as a mess? Huh? If you were an alien, actually, let's say we had the technology to affect time, space, control where we're going to be within moments versus light years. And we landed on a planet where the most intelligent species were bombing each other or checking out how bombs worked, fighting each other, doing weird, crazy things. I don't know, what would you do? Because I'm thinking they understand what's going on because, you know, they're working with meconium. Why would they be here? What are they doing here? Perhaps we have resources. They're not here for the humans. They're not interested. They're interested in the resources that Earth has, right? That's one idea. But there's not, look, this universe, it's infinite. It goes on for eternity. There is no end in sight. So as far as intelligent life goes, yes, there's a variety of intelligent life. There's a variety of intelligent life that perhaps preceded their technological advances and is able to travel the universe and interstellar space. Then I'm sure there's intelligent life that was self-destructive and destructed itself. Perhaps there's intelligent life that is still in the caveman age, you know, they're just slowly climbing out of the jungle, perhaps. Because realistically, human beings just got here. And if you go back to our technology 100 years ago, we're advancing so much in the last 100 years that 100 years from now, we can't even comprehend. Versus if you go back to the year 1300 to the year 13500, it's the same. So to find intelligence, the reason why it's so difficult is not just because space is so large we can't even comprehend, but also it's because intelligent life has to link at the same time that they reach that level of intelligence. Because if you go back to the year 1200, human beings are intelligent enough to sustain life and to grow crops and to eat and to live, and our ancestors gave birth to us, but not to hang out with the aliens or contact the aliens, or, as many have mentioned, the pyramids. No one can figure that out. So perhaps aliens are why we're here. Maybe we're just a hybrid of the aliens where they're test and they're looking at us and they're going, well, that was a mistake. Not that I'm saying I'm a mistake or you're a mistake, but I mean the bombing, when they see, you know, human beings testing nuclear bombs in the air and in the ocean, they got to say, well, we made a mistake. Let's donate one of our spacecrafts to them and see if these idiots can figure it out. No, instead we'll make Bob Lazar look like he's a conspiracy theorist person and not give him credit till 40 years later, which is better than a lot of other people in history. There are a lot of people in history who didn't get credit until they passed away. What an incredible universe we live in. Anything you could probably conceive of or think of most likely exists, right? When you have enough time and you have infinity, there's enough time and enough resources to create everything, right? We can't even figure out how to create and use 115 because supposedly they created it, right? So what do you think about Bob Lazar? Is he one of your favorite people? I think he's cool. I mean, I like a whistleblower. I like someone who sees what's going on and lets the rest of us know. But I mean, back then, people forget things within a week. It could be the worst thing that ever happened and people forget. So yes, originally they let people know there was a spacecraft and then they just took it back. They're like, oh, it was a space balloon. And then people went back to their regular lives. Like people forget, you know what I mean? You have to, that's why slogans and commercials are always repeat, because it has to stay fresh in your mind so you don't forget, so you buy the product. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed my video and I'll see you next time. Thank you for coming to the Lizzy Show. And remember to not play with elements that decay within milliseconds. Unless you're an alien who knows how to use it. I gotta go. Bye.